Oh, hello everyone, and welcome to the Funky Panther. Coming here from Fort Worth, Texas, we have got another amazing show for you. Here on episode 113, we have got Eddie Brown, award-winning Fort Worth Weekly editor, right?
Staff writer.
Staff writer? Sorry, staff writer. Yeah.
Working my way up to editor.
Yeah, okay, staff writer. And we're so excited to talk to him, get to know a little bit about him, the Fort Worth Weekly, and then also he's got some things to talk about. And so we're going to talk about that. So sit back, relax, and enjoy, everybody. I'm Chad.
I'm Javier.
I'm Tim.
And we are
the Funky Panther.
Woo! What's up, Eddie? How you doing, man?
Good. Glad to be in the hot seat.
Hey, man, we're glad that you're here. It's fun because now we can talk about the fact that we didn't win the Fort Worth Weekly Best of podcast, you know?
Joke's on you. We brought you here because we're going to beat you up.
So we don't care about any of this.
Setup. All right. I'm ready for it. Let's hear it. Let's do it.
I got the sack of oranges.
So who do we have to pay off next year? Just so we know. I mean, we're about a year away. Who do we have to pay off to make sure that we win next year?
Well, I would just say keep being awesome, keep inviting me on the show, and maybe book me, a month in advance, every other month, and we'll see what happens.
I heard we got to get some sort of bots or something. Or,
Russian bots.
Some Russian bots.
We're doing Ukrainian bots, not Russian bots.
Oh, there you go.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
There it is.
Okay, so that's how we get best stuff again. What about a cover? What does it take to get the Funky Panther on the cover of the Fort Worth Weekly?
I feel like you guys are good contenders for that, seriously.
Look how pretty his mustache is.
The mustache says it all.
And then
Right?
he looks okay.
I'm here.
He's presentable.
And I'll just stand in the back. You know what I mean?
Javier's got that nice white stripe right there.
A little skunk patch right here.
It shows he's distinguished.
I mean, our buddy Dane's had like a cover.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
We've had a lot of guests on the show that have had covers. Dustin's been on the cover before.
Yeah.
Dane. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I think
Actually,
JOE's
if you guys-
probably been on a cover
If you guys started
before.
a band, it might increase your chances.
Okay.
That's the problem.
We're just going to start doing music on the
Leading
side
blind.
Just start a band.
for no reason, just
Yeah.
to get on the cover.
That's all it takes. We'll make it happen.
All right. Well, that aside, that's not really why we brought you on, although it's good to know. Take notes over here. But no, we want to get to know you a little bit, Eddie. So something we generally do when we have guests on the show is we do a little something called the Funky Fives, which is 5 kind of rapid-fire questions about you and mostly like local-related questions, right?
Cool.
So question number 1, what is your favorite Fort Worth restaurant?
My favorite Fort Worth restaurant.
Yeah, where do you visit the most or enjoy the most?
Well, I'm going to pick an area because I just hang out there a lot.
Okay.
And that's South Main.
Okay.
Nice.
So within that vicinity, I know you guys go to Nichols City a lot. They've got some amazing tater tots that blow away what I had in 5th grade. That's I don't know if that's saying a lot or saying a little, but it does. Those are some incredible tots. The Bearded Lady has always been amazing. I think they've done a good job. Changing buildings but keeping the same culture there. I love Shannon and all that stuff. Teenies.
Fantastic.
Across the street, my friend James calls it Tiny's, and that's really stupid. No, it's Teenies. Like, who named a restaurant Tiny's? Obviously, they didn't do that.
Right.
But Teenies is good. But yeah, that's my area, so I love that area. So
yeah, same. I'm surprised we haven't seen you over there. Like, we pretty much live in Nichols City on the side. We go to Hot Fusion a lot. We go to
you live
Teenies.
there. I frequent it from time to time.
I say we to make you sound a little bit better.
Appreciate it.
He just stays at home.
I like staying at home.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So that area. So that might feed into the next question. What is your favorite drinking spot in Fort Worth?
My favorite drinking spots. Okay, so I try to bounce around. I go out to drink on like weekends, but I realize not weekends, Sundays and Mondays, and I realize Fort Worth's so dead. So I've had kind of a challenge trying to figure out where can I go to hang out that's cool on like Sunday night.
Yeah.
And that's a really interesting kind of challenge. I should probably write a blog about that. But
Yeah.
I know. Like, there's like 3 spots, but one of them I've been to twice in rows. The Worthington Hotel on Sunday nights. They have a really nice bar that they've revamped, which is really cool. Toro Toros.
Is that down? Oh, downtown.
Yeah,
I know
the
where
Worthington
Toro Toro's
Renaissance
at.
Hotel.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
I've been going there a couple times. Had fun playing pickleball of all things. I've been going back to that place on University.
Courtside Kitchen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
It's a good spot.
surprisingly, like really fun. So
And also, you get a really good workout with that. Like
I am surprised because yeah, sure, because I'm a long distance runner, and like I thought this would be easy. I'm like passing over by the end of that night. Yeah. Also because I was drinking while simultaneously trying to.
You gotta hydrate. You know what I mean? Like beer, water, beer, water. You know what I mean? It's
beer, beer, water, beer.
That's what it is. But Toro
just a little bit of water.
Toro has a really good old fashioned over there. They got a little good cocktail menu.
Their whole bar is really nice. They have these kind of little compartmentalized living room kind of areas that it kind of hints at a living room, but you get to kind of hang out with your friends in different areas. So I recommend checking out Worthington Hotel.
Yeah.
Nice.
I spent a birthday over there once.
I bet you did.
Oh, alone, I'm sure.
Yeah,
you crying over your cupcake.
I actually was. I was.
I'm sorry to bring that up. Why would you bring that up? You're going to traumatize yourself on your own show, but go ahead.
Slow burn.
Yeah, slow burn. We're just getting started here.
All right. Do you have a favorite Fort Worth musician, like a local musician that you listen to or try to see anytime they're performing or anything like that?
Yeah, I cover local music. So I just saw, we talked about Joe.
Yeah.
He's a really talented, young rapper.
Absolutely.
So like him, Cody Lynn Boyd is a friend of mine.
Okay.
Singer-songwriter. He's really good. I'm a big fan of Abraham Alexander.
Oh yeah.
Just an incredible, songwriter, musician, guitarist, all that kind of stuff.
And a great human too.
He's really nice, really humble guy.
Yeah.
So Jake Palachek is another one. I like him. So a lot of local folks.
I have not heard of Jake.
Yeah.
I'll have to check that out.
Okay.
Cody plays. Didn't he have a show coming up?
He probably does.
I think on. I want to say.
I mean, he's a musician, Javier.
On Friday.
I would hope he does, right?
Yeah.
At some point. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Let's hope he does for the sake of his career. Let's hope he has a show coming up at some point in the future
to pay the bills.
Yeah.
All right. So on this next one, it's not exactly local, and we're also not exactly fishing. We want to know, like, what is your podcast, like something that you go to and you actually listen to on a regular basis?
I have a friend who left KERA recently, who's got a podcast on Vox called Today Explained, and his name's Hadi Mwagdi. He does a really good job. And so I like news podcasts, I have to say. So I alternate between that and the New York Times' The Daily.
Oh, I love The Daily.
The Daily, yeah. So if you like The Daily, try Today Explained by Vox.
I have them on my phone. Yeah.
Yeah, I just go back and forth between those two.
Nice.
So,
Very cool.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. I mean, those kinds of podcasts, anything from NPR. Like I listen
NPR is great too. All the NPR ones.
Like Snap Judgment from WNYC.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's cool.
All that stuff.
All right, so I'm going to take the last one because I like to paint this picture.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so think back about a time in your life whenever you didn't have just a TV guide on the screen. You flipped through channels, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you come across, no matter where it's at in the movie, but you come across that one movie. It could be halfway through. You just know you're going to stop there and you're going to watch it. What movie is that?
If it were my favorite movie, serious answer, I like Shawshank Redemption.
Everybody,
to be the number one.
Yeah.
How can you not say that?
Yeah, I agree.
There's so many great
good
moments out of that. Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
So I would stop every time.
You could pick each scene really is kind of iconic in its little way, and it's cool. I think who said it last week? I think
Tober and Eric both picked it whenever they were here.
Yeah, they were saying like one of them cries every time like Brooks makes it. Well, not Brooks. Whenever he gets out, escapes, and he's like in the freedom. It's like just tears streaming down their face.
That was Tober. Yeah,
it was Tober. He's a softie.
Yeah, no, we've had a lot of good Shawshanks here in the past couple months.
Yeah.
Speaks well of your guest.
Yeah,
I think so. I think so.
Spot on, empathetic human beings.
100%. Well, awesome. You did it. You made it through the Funky Five.
And in record time.
I know. He didn't ask any side questions, which is really good.
Up there.
No. See, no.
How about TV? Like, what are you watching? What are you watching right now?
Oh, my God. I have to take midnight showers after watching it, but the Jeffrey Dahmer thing.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just, I'll watch the first episode, and it's so dark. I'm like, there's no way I could watch this. And then I just start watching the next night, and it's just.
And then you realize, like, this is a real person.
This
actually happened. What, that just, oh, man.
I still haven't seen it. I think I'm just waiting.
It's worth it, and I think I've said this before. I'm glad that it's not glamorizing the case, right? But it's actually showing like how dark and evil this whole situation was.
Right.
Versus like some of those serial killer movies and shows really just like kind of glamorize things. And
this one, and it's interesting. It's complex. Whoever wrote it is doing a really good job acting as well. But it does talk about racial inequalities heavily, which is interesting because you can't separate that from his story. He positioned himself in a poor black neighborhood because he knew the cops weren't going to do their job, and he was right. And they've kind of just made that not a central part, but an important part of it, more than just the murders. There's a social commentary there as well. So.
Yeah, I thought it was very well done. It really kind of shines the light on many different perspectives and not just him. You know what I mean?
No spoilers.
Well,
yeah, you just ruined it, dude.
Did I know?
You just ruined the whole thing.
I've got one. I think one episode left. So we were like, I don't want to. It's real heavy, you know. It's like one of those things. I can't binge watch this.
Yeah.
Well, shows like that really open up. Like you hear about these people, and you don't know the ins and outs of the cases or what was going on, or even I'm sure what like a lot of mistakes the police made. When there was that one case with the young Filipino boy who was
and they thought he was his boyfriend. They check it,
just on drugs.
Yeah, it was like, oh, he said he was his boyfriend, and he said he was 19.
Yeah,
it's 14.
Yeah,
no due diligence there.
So I mean, you see that side of that too, and that brings light to it. Which also another reason why we have you here today is to get into what you want to talk about.
Okay, what is that? I forget. I brought some court documents.
So we're gonna. First off, we want to get a little bit of I guess pedigree on you. So you're not from Fort Worth originally. We were discussing that. So tell us a little bit about yourself before we.
Is this the where are you from Asian person questions? Where are you from?
Yeah, where are you from?
But really, where are you from now?
Yeah.
From Ohio. My parents moved down here when I was little, and they went to UNT. And I grew up in Denton and then Louisville.
Yeah.
And then went back to Denton to go to college at UNT, and then found myself in Fort Worth. And just haven't had the courage to leave since then.
Man, we're glad to have you.
I don't have the balls to leave. I was just
look at that.
Lazy.
Good.
He's one of you, mean green, man.
Yeah.
I'm just comfortable. I'm like, I'll just stay here.
I finally graduate in December. So.
Oh, really?
From UNT, yeah.
Oh, cool.
Very excited about it
really
being over with.
Yeah, I bet you are.
Yeah.
And so you are a writer for the Fort Worth Weekly. So what kind of we got people not just local to Fort Worth, but what is the Fort Worth Weekly?
Yeah, good question. We're an alt weekly, so that's a family of newspapers or magazines that you'll find Dallas Observer, Austin Chronicle. So a lot of major cities have an alt weekly, and they're free newspapers. So that's the first thing that kind of differentiates them from a daily paper like a Star Telegram. So most large cities will have a daily and a weekly. And an alt weekly, we're paid through advertisement through restaurants and bars, So, and that's what allows us to give it away for free. So it's a little different business model than Star Telegram, which you pay. We kind of focus on music and the bar scene, culture, and news. And so that's just kind of an alt-weekly thing. On the news side, we tend to do kind of long-form, complicated stories that people have a hard time finishing. I understand sometimes. So that's why I'm here, hopefully to reach some new folks. But yeah, we're out every week. You'll see our red bins, and grab it. Keep up with local music, restaurants, film, but a lot of hyper-local stuff. We don't pull from national ever. It's Fort Worth. So
so like a part of the City in Crisis series that you're currently.
That's a series that we started this summer because things are so fucked up right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we just thought we're just gonna dig in and not pull back like you guys don't pull back, even though you maybe should sometimes. Some of the comments, but we take that approach with news, and we're just gonna go after some big name fish. And do it relentlessly until we're done, and who knows, if we'll ever be done.
So you also do the hitting the Fort series too, where you talk to like a bunch of local like restaurateurs, artists.
Yeah, thanks for all this. So we have a video series too. So we're trying to do more video content. And we would do a podcast, but there's like too many good podcasts out there right now. Why? Why
stay out of our space, man?
Seriously, why tread on when other people are doing it so well? But we do some video content, and I try to do about 2 videos a week, and that alternates between like our normal coverage. Sometimes it's newsy, sometimes it's restaurants and like I said, we're going to have JOE on, next week. So we try to follow the local scene, through video content as well.
Even you had John Bonnell a couple
yeah.
weeks back.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago, we had John, real nice guy.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah, didn't you go to his new spot?
John's Grill.
Yeah.
I don't think I was disappointed. Hope John's not listening, but man, no free food. That's the reason we're doing this. We show up to a restaurant like, oh man, we're gonna score some free food, and maybe he didn't think about it, but
yeah. Is it worth checking out, even though it wasn't free for you?
I've heard it's amazing.
Yeah.
The lady who reviewed it gave a very good review. I mean, it's John Bonnell. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
He's no slouch.
Yeah, I need to check that place out. It looks really, really good.
I mean, that's
social
why
media.
For us, we started a podcast to get all the free things.
Yeah.
It's
all a scam. We're all on a scam. Like, you guys get sponsors, giving you liquor. We walk into a restaurant. Yeah, we'll do a video of you. Just give me some.
Yeah. I want free jeans, Levi's.
This episode brought to you by Printed Threads.
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
It is. This episode is, yeah.
It's a new attire.
All right. So before we get into like the meat and potatoes of this episode, I do want to preface this. So if you didn't watch anything that we posted hyping this up, this is a little bit different format than what we normally do. We don't normally have a lot of heavy, serious commentary that comes on here. But with that said, I mean, you approached us, and we wanted to give you another avenue to share some information.
Yeah, thank you.
Maybe enlighten some people on a particular case that happened. We're 3 years, I believe, 3 years down the road right now. So the Atatiana Jefferson case in Fort Worth, which, I mean, if you don't know about it, it's a horrendous deal that happened. A woman killed in her own home by a police officer here in Fort Worth. So with that said, I just want to preface that this is a little bit heavier content, and
but you did say that anytime it gets too heavy, you're going to hit the whoopee cushion.
Oh yeah,
that might happen.
Just to make sure that we're kind of back to the Funky Panther. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but exactly. But I just
please don't interrupt me with that sound gag, please. I'm gonna walk out.
But just stick around and let's maybe learn a little bit about this. So. You've hit on whenever we were just kind of discussing before we came in here is that there's some stuff going on with the judges and the district attorney's office and things like that are happening here in Fort Worth, and that's kind of what you want to highlight in this episode. So just let's get into it. What do you got for us?
So I think I would hope most people know the background. You gave a good summary of Atatiana Jefferson. A lot of the discussions and the media attention has been on the Fort Police Department, and so I'm not going to actually get into that because that's something that's kind of people are going to have those frustrations. But what I've been looking at is judges. So for the past 6 months, I've been looking at criminal judges in Tarrant County, family court judges, statewide stuff. And I'll just say it's really interesting because with judges, a lot of their paperwork, a lot of the stuff behind the scenes, nobody ever sees. We kind of revere judges. We don't question them. We assume that they're on the up and up, and if they're in a position to send someone to prison for their life or to separate families, they must be. I can't say this without almost kind of, being sarcastic. It must be honest, upstanding people. And that's, I'll just say in general, that's not always the case. And as you kind of dig into it more and more, you find that there's a lot of unethical things to happen with judges. So my research has touched on visiting retired judges across the states. I'll occasionally, talk about judicial misconduct here and there. But I thought for you guys, I've never talked to anyone about judges relating to this case. It's something that doesn't get looked at. Who are the judges that have touched this case? Who are the judges that are going to be judge that's going to be presiding over this case, and what's their history?
Right.
Do they have, are they on the up and up? And basically, I'm going to be describing some things they've done that people should know about. Right. I mean, when this case happens in December. In George Gallagher's court here in Tarrant County, whatever the verdict is, people are going to consider how fair was the judge. Before I get into it, what does the judge do, right? So, the idea that judges try to give is that they're just this referee. They don't influence the case at all, right? They're just, calling fouls, and that's that's not really true. They can make a decision on the spur of the moment to allow evidence to be entered or withheld rather. They allow arguments by the defense and the prosecution to be, sustained, to be allowed to go through or not. So they actually do play an active role in the outcome of the case. So again, this is why we should, pay attention to our judges and definitely pay attention when we're electing them. All right, so to get started, again, by way of background, I'm not going to talk too much about David Hagerman because he's out of the picture. So David Hagerman was the judge for a long time that was going to preside over this case. And he was, recused, kicked out in June recently by Lee Gabriel. And the defense team argued successfully that Hagerman was hostile to them. They had a lot of witnesses show up. And so that happened. So I'm going to kind of skim over, David Hagerman. I could dwell on him, but again, a lot of people have talked about him already and his, kind of demeanor in court.
Is that regular though? Just go ahead. Is that regular that someone is recused because of their hostility towards like a defendant or anything like that?
I'm not sure how frequent it is, but it's worth noting that that move played into the defense's advantage. So there's a general understanding that the more you can delay a case, any defense attorney will say this, even though the defendants probably want to be out from under this very quickly. Any good defense attorney will tell you that the longer you can play out, things happen. The victim, if they're living, they might die. There are a number of things like that. There are things it all works in the defense's favor as you prolong. Oh, yeah. So that was kind of a win for the defense. And I don't know how common that argument is, but it was one that was enough that was considered valid by this visiting retired judge named Lee Gabriel. So her name doesn't come up very often. So what happened was David Evans. So you guys are going to have to remember a couple of names here.
Okay, David Evans?
David Evans is at the top of the 8th Administrative Judicial Region, which encompasses basically North Texas. Okay. So he's the top dog judge that's, in this case, appointed. He's not an elected judge. He's appointed to that position by Greg Abbott. So he picks which visiting judges come in, or if someone needs to sit in on a case, he's the administrator.
Okay.
So he picked Lee Gabriel. So Lee Gabriel was the one that recused Hagerman, and she's a visiting retired judge. And what I found in my reporting is that these visiting retired judges don't file their oath of office. So she never filed her oath of office for that recusal, meaning she was constitutionally unqualified to do that. And I'll try to summarize. So let's talk about oaths of office. All right. So if I'm the president of the United States, I take an oath of every appointed and elected public servant takes an oath of office before they can begin their. So Article 16 of the state constitution says, basically says that before you can start your job as a sheriff or city council member, you must take the oath of office. Well, retired judges dodge this requirement often because dodging it would cut into how much money they can make doing their job. So I'm going to talk about that, which is a bribery type element to this. But before I talk about that, why does a visiting retired judge have to take their oath of office? Because they're retired. Their oath is dead. So by way of example, if I'm the president and my term ends and I get reelected, I have to take my oath of office again.
Right.
Anytime any president's elected, they take their oath of office again because the oath only exists for the time of their office. And so retired judges, by definition, have no oath of office, right? So what they're supposed to do is to file their oath of office at the beginning of each appointment. And so she didn't do that. And so what that basically means is she was not constitutionally qualified for making that decision. And you could argue that that decision was never made because she was never constitutionally qualified to do that. So legally, the defense team could come back. Let's say that Aaron Dean's found not guilty, he's acquitted. I'm sorry, let me change that scenario. Let's say Aaron Dean's found guilty. Apologize. They could come back and say, well, Lee Gabriel is not qualified to recuse Hagerman. Hagerman's technically still the judge. Gallagher was never qualified to be placed over this trial, right?
So this is a positive for the defense.
It is. All these mistakes that we're going to talk about today play into the defense.
Okay.
So because if he's found guilty, there's a lot of ways for him to appeal, and he's going to want to base his appeal off of mistakes, errors, procedural problems that occurred along the way.
Yeah.
Once you're found innocent, they can't go back and try you again. Innocent is innocent, right? But when you're guilty, you have an appeal process all the way up to the Court of Criminal Appeals. So this is just this is the first layer of all of that. So Lee Gabriel recusing Hagerman. She wasn't qualified. Oh, real quickly, so it's a whole different topic, but visiting retired judges are paid about $500 a day to sit in. If she had filed her oath of office, she would have had to pause her retirement pay. So what they're doing is they're saying, I'm not going to file my office. I'm just going to take retirement, and I'm going to make some extra money on the side.
Yeah, so double dipping there.
Double dipping
wow.
is what it is.
So let me ask real quick. Wouldn't it be, I mean, I know you say that judges should be unbiased and they should remain neutral. So, I mean, essentially, wouldn't you think that the state would benefit more of a judge that would be on their side? Or, like, I mean, they had to be, like, non-partial, but, I mean...
The way the system works is judges, what I'm finding is they protect their own. So you have this judiciary from the Supreme Court all the way down to these low-level trial judges, and up and down, they protect themselves. And, you know, as far as is the states, you know, allowing them to do that, probably, you know. I want to read you all something real quickly. So people can look this up. Chapter 837 of Government Code talks about retirement. And this is a quote: "The retirement system shall suspend annuity payments to a retiree who takes the oath of office." So again, by not taking the oath of office, they're not suspending their retirement. And so this is kind of, again, double dipping. One could argue that it reads kind of like it could have some bribery aspects to it because you're giving undue money to someone to do something. But it's a problem that's not isolated to Lee Gabriel. It's something that appears to be happening throughout the Texas judiciary with regards to retired visiting judges. They have retirement money, and they're making extra money coming in to sit as retired judges when they shouldn't be.
So it's generally a decision made because of the money, but it has these kind of side effects where it could impact the case later down the road.
So they're thinking short-sightedly, you know, I'm going to make extra money, I'm not going to pause my retirement, but the consequences could be severe for a case like this where, a guilty verdict could be appealed on the grounds of this. So she was, and the story's going to get more fun as we get going. So she's, that's the first level. There's David Evans, who's the administrative judge of the region, and we're finding that he's just making up judicial titles for judges as they need it. So I'm setting this aside. That's setting that aside right now. So I'm gonna give an example, and I brought some documents so you guys can see it because this is all kind of fun. This is the stuff we should have had in government class in high school, but they didn't. The teacher did not, talk about public corruption, in your community. Kids would have, woken up and paid attention. But there's a judge. This is our region, Jim Hogan. And if you flip through his assignments, and this is stuff that people typically don't ask for, they want to see the order of assignment. This is stuff that's signed by David Evans. David Evans is the guy who signed for Lee Gabriel, who recused Hagerman. So there's this. These are the judges that have touched the Aaron Dean trial. And if you look through these files, you see this judge's title change. And it shouldn't change. So sometimes he's called senior judge of Tarrant County, and alternately, he's got 3 titles. If you go through this is a retired judge, and I'll show you all this. So he's called associate judge here, and he's called senior judge.
Right, so senior judge, associate judge,
and he's got a 3rd title. And judges should not be changing title. Right. Like you are what you are by virtue of the statute that you fulfilled. And here's his 3rd title. And again, what this is allowing him to, what David Evans is enabling this retired judge to do is to basically skip around and take on assignments that he may or may not have been qualified for, to go outside of his county, Wichita County in particular, to make extra money. There's a really
we'll give you this title. And now you can go forth. Real quick, coming from the chat, though, just curious, maybe a dumb question, but that seems like a pretty big liability either way you look at it. Why not leave retired judges out of these cases? I mean, I think that...
So the question of why do these visiting retired judges... You got to remember, these judges know their retired buddies, right? And so the retired buddies, want to make extra money. And so they're requesting their friends to sit in on cases, often allowing the active judge to forego doing their job. So I have found cases where judges are wanting to go on a retreat, or they're wanting to go to do something that they're electing to do that's not, they really should be staying in their court and overseeing cases, but they're going to let their buddy come in. The active judge still makes money. Their salary doesn't change. But their buddy gets to come in and make extra money on the side, and this other judge gets to skip work. So the retired visiting judge system is highly unethical because often they don't follow their constitutional oaths, and it's a good old boy kind of system. You have to understand these judges know each other.
Does it benefit the case at all, though? Like, what's the point from like a case perspective?
They would say that that there are times when judges need someone to fill in because, let's say that they do have to take continuing education, for instance.
Yeah.
And so if I'm the judge of county court, criminal court 8, and I have to take my mandatory leave of absence, you do need someone to fill in. The other active judges, they're active. They can't just come over to your court. So that's what the system's designed for, but it's overused.
Yeah.
I mean,
gotcha.
Look how many, within 2 years, this guy, these are criminal cases. Like, he's filling in for a lot of judges.
Right.
That probably, arguably, should be maybe working an extra hour or two to take these kind of cases. So the whole system's hard to justify. We don't need them as much as we think we do.
So whenever you mentioned Hagerman, I had to look him up. I was actually a juror in his court not even that long ago. That dude is something else. Like, he's kind of scary.
That's why he's recused.
Like seriously, like, he is very intense, and kind of like, if he thinks it's there's something going on that's bullshit or whatever, he's going to he will just say quit your bullshit and just yell at people. And
very hostile.
I mean, the dude is very, very intense.
Yeah.
He also reminds me of Woody Harrelson from that bowling movie, Kingpin.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He kind of has that look to him. Whenever I first saw him, I'm just sitting there the whole time. I'm like, man, I should be paying attention to this case, but that dude really reminds me of Woody Harrelson. But anyways, very intense. I was just kind of like taken back by that. And then you mentioned his name. I'm like, is that the same one? I looked him up, saw a picture. I'm like, yep, same guy.
Yeah, so he's known as being a very hostile judge. So I hope I answered that question. It comes down to it's a good old boy kind of system is kind of the best explanation for it. So also there's so many tangents I can go down. So typically when you have a felony case, it's selected randomly, and these visiting retired judges, they get hand selected for cases by judges. So you come into a case and you think your judge was selected randomly, and they were selected maybe to send your case in one direction. One could argue, or maybe an active judge didn't want to be a part of a dirty case, and they back out and send in visiting retired judges. They seem to be assigned to a lot of kind of dirty cases, is what I've noticed in my reporting. So,
and when you say dirty, you mean what exactly?
Like there's something ethically compromising. Like
Got
maybe there isn't a strong case, but the DA really wants this person to be guilty, or maybe this person, didn't really commit the crime, but letting them off would make this cop look bad because the cop planted evidence or something like that. So if they want active judges that don't want to be a part of a dirty case, they can bring in these visiting retired judges so it doesn't kind of taint the active judge's image.
Tarrant County has had this nickname kind of running through I've heard over the years is Tolerant County, where it's more.
I've heard Tyrant County.
You've heard that? I've heard tolerant in the sense of like, they will, as long as they can get a conviction, no matter what, they'll throw what it doesn't matter. Don't go for what someone should actually be trialed at. Just go for whatever's going to stick and get that conviction. It's all about the numbers game.
Yeah.
And so a lot of things are like assaults on EMS workers is one. Like, they for the longest time wouldn't prosecute. They're like, no, it's not worth our time. And they would just not do it. So it got the nickname through my world as Tolerant County, and then you start hearing about stuff where it's just like, yeah, it's just numbers. Just whatever you can get a conviction on, just get it. So
why is that important? So here's the reason. Prosecutors, they're given promotions, whether the DA's office will say it or not, on the conviction rates. And so they are paying attention to, are you 80% conviction? Are you 90% conviction? They'll say it's about justice, but it's really about convictions. For judges, it's the same thing. They want to clear their dockets and have a lot of convictions because it looks good for their campaigns, their election campaigns. And what you see is that's why you see so much weight put on plea bargaining, which is a way of getting someone to admit they're guilty, whether they really are or not, or whether they would have maybe been found not guilty in a trial, but they have to wait 3 years for a trial. They're just going to say, I'll just plead guilty, pay the fine, get out of here. There's a lot of that could be its own kind of episode.
And judges don't typically have term limits, right?
So no, they're elected. They can be elected, until they, croak. So yeah.
Wow.
So and it's a pretty powerful position. So judge, you cannot question them. There is a lot of immunity for what they do.
Right.
So.
Man.
So we talk about Lee Gabriel, David Evans. There's another judge I'm going to mention very quickly who was listed as a senior judge on 100 assignments falsely, and he never qualified. He never fulfilled the statutory requirements for being a senior judge, and his name's Darryl Coffey. And so what should happen, the Court of Criminal Appeals has stated that any judge who has not fulfilled the statutory requirements of their job, their rulings are absolutely void. And here we have a judge who never even asked to be a senior judge, assigned as a senior judge, and he has 100 criminal cases that he's overseen. Those should all be retried. Like, these are people who are deprived of their right to due process. Another weird thing about retired judges is that imagine if you're a nurse and you retire and you come back as a surgeon. So if this is what happens. This is what happens with retired judges. So I'm a misdemeanor DWI judge, right?
Yeah.
I oversee drunk people like in this room, make stupid decisions. But that doesn't mean I'm qualified to oversee felony cases because they separate that. There's county and there's district. What happens in this system, I'm not sure quite if it's even legal, but these county judges come back and oversee felony cases they never would have been allowed to see as an active judge. It's really, people don't know that.
So why is this happening though? And like, let's say if they're for or against the state or the defendant, do they know that they're like what you're saying?
Defendants and even defense attorneys have no idea this is going on. So again, there's this assumption that when you see a judge walk in, you assume this judge is qualified to see my case. You don't know the judge hasn't taken their oath. You don't know that this judge was a DWI judge, and now he's overseeing a capital murder case. He doesn't. He's not qualified for that. But it's allowed to happen with this retired judge system, and that whole system is managed by David Evans, and that is tied to the Aaron Dean trial because Evans assigned Gabriel, who assigned George Gallagher to this case. So,
man, it's so there's like so many layers. You're just peeling them back, and what I find interesting about this, it's almost like you've got these retired judges that didn't get the chance to. Maybe trial some of these big cases,
play in the
like
big leagues,
like
you could say.
This is the stuff, man, I've always wanted to do this, and now this is, hey, I know you've always wanted to do this. I don't really want to do this case. Why don't you come and sit in? And that's
well, that gets back to the
scary.
the whole bribery angle of this. We don't know how these active judges are thinking, or what they're getting from these retired judges, to give them these big favors, these big breaks.
Right.
There could be something as simple as, hey, you can come sit in on this murder trial. I know you've never got to do this. You get to be a big dog. And by the way, I want to go hunting on your property next week. Can you just let me leave the gate open? So those are the things that we don't, it's really hard to see, but it creates the appearance of it creates the possibility that there's bribery going on.
Kind of like a city manager going on a flight with the Bass family. And,
David Cook, yes.
Yeah, okay. So that's man, and the fact that it could be just something as simple as like you just said, like, hey, I know you got this prime hunting land.
Mm-hmm.
How about let me just come out there and you know what, you come sit on this case. I'm gonna go hunt on your land.
Yeah,
we call it good.
Yeah, and if no one documents it, if there's no email, the FBI they don't know,
But we can't prove it. That's just something we're perceiving as a possibility.
I mean, the only way you can prove it is if they open an investigation, like you said, it's documented in email. They get warrants and all that stuff, and they're able to tie those things, back.
Well, we know these people know each other.
Right.
Yeah.
They're friends.
So. Of course.
It's like a boys' club.
Yeah, I mean, I think. You see that a lot with just the legal system in general, just that kind of close-knit, like you were saying. Like, I mean, it makes sense that judges are not, maybe you don't even have to like each other, but you're going to protect each other because that's part of the brotherhood or the group that you're with.
Right, but again, like you're assuming a little bit. I mean, there's sometimes that I scratch Javier's back, and I don't even ask him to scratch mine.
That's true.
I mean? Like
that makes you a sucker. You could be making big bucks if you knew the system.
Yeah.
So. But the last one I want to talk about is George Gallagher, who actually will be presiding over the case. And he has a history of assigning special prosecutors that cover up corrupt public officials. And so within the last couple of years, so a special prosecutor, let's talk about that. So that's basically it's an outside attorney, usually assigned from a district attorney outside of Tarrant County, and they're brought in to investigate something. So let's say Sharon Wilson came into office in 2016 and used her email to invite her county employees to come to her fundraiser. That would violate state law. That actually happened. So what the DA cannot ethically investigate itself, right? So what do? They just hand it off to another district attorney's office who assigns it to basically another attorney. And in that case, they found no wrongdoing with Sharon Wilson. And one thing I'm looking into is there's a pattern of special prosecutors in Tarrant County finding no wrongdoing with elected officials. So they're basically brought in specifically to investigate our elected officials because you want to show that there's no impropriety, right? So you ask Parker County or you ask Dallas County or Ellis County, and David Gallagher has signed a lot of these special prosecutor orders requesting them, and they've all led to finding no fault in elected officials, which statistically makes no sense. If someone's bringing up a legitimate complaint and then they're always found there's no wrongdoing, you have to wonder if that investigation was done legitimately.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, are they able to pick which special prosecutor is able to investigate these? Like, I know I want you to investigate us, but I want it to be Ellis County. Are they able to do that, or?
It's a good question. That's the part that's a little bit murky. I know with assigning judges for felony cases, it's supposed to be done randomly, and who knows if it's actually done that way. But again, it appears that they're selectively picking special prosecutors that are going to be favorable to the outcome. And so there was a case a couple years ago. Keith Lane is a Haltom City former police chief, and I wrote about this for the Weekly. He turned in evidence to the DA's office about Open Meetings Act violations, and that was sent to a special prosecutor who basically just sat on it for indefinitely. Even to this day, it was just sat on. And that was assigned by George Gallagher, who has assigned about 9 of these cases that have never resulted in any wrongdoing from elected officials. And I talked to Keith Lane at length, and he sent me all the documents, and he was adamant that it's very, they were literally like violating the Open Meetings Act, in front of everyone, and they were speaking about they're breaking another law where they're speaking about an employee who wasn't present, stuff that they just can't do. And he would document it, and he would bring it over to the DA's office, and they eventually assigned these prosecutors who just sat on it forever. And so he talked to me about that for a story. So some of the statistics with special prosecutors, 2016 there were 2, 2017 there were 3, 2018 there were 6, 2019 there were 5, 2020 there were 7. I haven't gone back to look for the other ones, but out of those, 9 were assigned by George Gallagher. And there's also one special prosecutor that was assigned in 2021 who was assigned to investigate a complaint that I filed. And so this is the one that I have a lot of firsthand experience in, and I've notified George Gallagher that the special prosecutor was bogus. You guys want to hear about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, firsthand knowledge, that sounds very interesting. Yeah, I want to hear all about it.
All right, so I'll try to be quick. So I have an ex-girlfriend who's an attorney, and might advise against might advise against that if you guys know what you're doing. But,
Dating lawyers?
But dating lawyers who, anyway, so like, turns out she's the mother of my daughter, and during her efforts to keep me from seeing my daughter, she said that I was harassing her.
Oh, wow.
And it turned out to be completely baseless. I've been, vindicated, and I don't stand charged of that anymore. But at the time, she went out of her way to, and she had a lot of connections. And so there was a lot of obstruction of justice, which was a crime, where you had her relatives influencing the police department and the district attorney's office, trying to say that I was committing a crime.
Right.
And it's all documented. I even had a Fort police officer, contact me saying she was doing X, Y, and Z. And so I filed these complaints, and eventually they decided, fine, we'll assign a special prosecutor. George Gallagher signed off on it. And I met with this guy. So it goes out to a guy named Patrick Wilson, who stepped down as DA in Ellis County shortly after. There was a lawsuit filed against him, alleging him of committing a state jail felony when he obtained emails from a secure county server, according to court documents. He was spying on a constable. So they assigned my case to this district attorney who was just getting out of a lawsuit that was trying to kick him out of office and find him being guilty of a felony. And this guy, Patrick Wilson, assigns the case to an investigator who's good friends with the person that I was citing as being behind this meddling. And this investigator was friends with my ex's family and admitted as much. So based off of that, I filed a complaint, and then just found it was a completely bogus investigation. This guy never took it seriously. He was just sitting, waiting around for a few months, blowing smoke up my ass. And then I eventually filed a complaint against Patrick Wilson for his bullshit, investigation. And he wrote me back this letter that I want you guys to read. I think here it is. I'll find it in a second. So he writes me. Here it is. You want to read this?
Yeah.
This is on letterhead from the district attorney in Ellis County.
So, I mean, the whole premise behind this, all right, you goes to the special prosecutor.
Yeah.
It gets assigned. They assign it to an investigator.
Mm-hmm.
The investigator is connected to the person that initiated a complaint against you, essentially. And so
personal friends.
Yes. So there's this connection there. I mean, ethically, you would hope that someone would be like, I'm actually too close to this case. I need to recuse myself.
Yeah, correct.
And that's what would happen. But it doesn't happen. And so, I mean, from there, I mean, how can one proceed if they're caught in a situation like that? How do you get a new investigator, like somebody that's not personally, related to something like that?
Well, George Gallagher never acknowledged that it was a bogus investigation, and I notified Gallagher of what happened. And basically, Patrick Wilson, this district attorney, just closed the case and said, we found nothing wrong. And once you read
so
this,
I'm just going to kind of do some highlights here. So, dear Mr. Brown, Webster's Dictionary defines a conspiracy theory as a theory that explains an event or set of circumstances as the result of a secret plot by usually powerful conspirators. In my extensive professional experience, those who adhere to conspiracy theories are motivated not by a distrust of a logical narrative supported by objective facts. They are, instead, motivated by a dislike of the logical narrative and objective facts. It is also my experience that a person once possessed can never be dispossessed of a conspiracy theory. That's for you, Tim.
There's some truth behind that, but man, that's just making my blood boil right now.
Yeah, I know, right? A mere attempt to persuade a person otherwise is for the person so convinced proof of the conspiracy which resonates loudly in their personal echo chamber. You believe forces of government have conspired against you to create negative circumstances in your life. To support your belief, you have sewn random events into a irrational tapestry of intrigue and collusion. No leap of logic is too far for you to jump in your effort to criticize outcomes that do not align with your self-serving narrative. And then with no proverbial dog in the fight and with no prior knowledge of events or circumstances, my office diligently investigated your allegations of collusion and government oppression. In the course of this investigation, investigators from office met with you for 6 hours. In the end, there was no objective evidence to support your conspirational claims. Now, weeks after the investigation was closed, you've brandished new allegations of conspiracy, not against the subject of your original complaint, but against my office. My experience precludes me from hopeful belief that the letter will cease your conspirational protestations. Please encourage whatever agencies to whom you are voicing and it ends.
This guy scored very high on verbal at the SATs. I got to say that.
I mean...
All right.
I did okay.
First off.
Except for the conspirational. That one's a word I don't use very often. But otherwise...
Here, I just want to say one thing. Like, I don't want to be rude, but this guy sounds like a real asshole.
Yeah, he does. But here's my other problem is like, all right, if you start looking, we're going to dive down a little bit of conspiracy talk, right?
This is Tim's
no one dives down a little bit of conspiracy talk.
Exactly.
Let's just go there.
I got to keep it a little bit under control. But conspiracy theories in general, I mean, you got some pretty far-fetched ones, right? And it's just like, okay, you mean to tell me that Elvis is still alive, right? But then we start looking at some of the stuff that's happened in the past, like the Tuskegee Airmen and all the, giving them syphilis. That was a conspiracy theory
for a while,
and then it got proven. MK Ultra was a conspiracy theory. So there are these things that happen that we would, you would be thrown to the wolves and called like a crazy person, and then 20, 30 years later or longer, it's all of a sudden like, oh yeah, that actually did happen, and I've been locked up in a loony bin, and now I'm dead, and but I've been shouting at the rooftops for this whole time that this is true. So,
well, even going back to the Dahmer situation, his next door neighbor assumed that whole thing was happening the whole time. To her, I mean, to everyone else, that was
she seemed like a crazy person, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's what like that letter irritates the piss out of me. Like, it's one of those things. Like, if I got that, my blood would be boiling, and I would. But I mean, where do you go from there?
But that's the intent too, right? Like, I feel like that's probably a little bit of the intent, is to kind of like,
something got triggered in him, and this is on county letterhead from the district attorney's office. This isn't an email. This is on a government form. Like, what an idiot!
And it's not. I mean,
dude, that's so true though.
It's basically using big words to say you're dumb.
Yeah.
Is all it is. Like, your warrant. Yeah. Your warrant. This doesn't mean anything. So just drop it, man. But like, where do you, as a citizen, where do you go from there though? I mean, you get something like that, but how do you make that like right?
That's where I'm frustrated. So again, I can't repeat it enough. My complaint, the reason what set him off was me saying the investigator that you sent to meet with me is friends with my ex-girlfriend.
Yeah.
Like, my complaint is, my ex-girlfriend's connections, and you send an investigator who's friends with that family. Like, what the fuck? But apparently that was a conspiracy, but it was CC to George Gallagher. So he was given this letter.
Don't people go to like federal prison for like conspiracy? I mean, there's conspiracy charges, right?
Yeah, on the part of the government.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm just saying, like, to say that a conspiracy is.
Well, the thing that's missing, I brought a lot of paperwork. I didn't bring a lot of paper. I have a lot of paperwork that backs up my allegations of obstruction of justice. I have emails from the city. I'm a guy who knows how to dig, and this is not in question. There was a crime that was committed. George Gallagher knows it's a bogus investigation, but it's a bogus investigation that was intended to cover up for the criminal justice system. And that's where it gets frustrating. Like, where do you go from here? Well, I recently contacted George Gallagher again because I got there's another letter that I received from the investigator who was, again, disparaging me to the district attorney's office I just recently found. And I said, I emailed George Gallagher and I said, you signed your name to an investigation that was intended to cover up criminal acts committed by government officials. You used your official capacity to assign a disgraced district attorney who was facing felony charges, who assigned it to someone who should have recused himself, and you allowed them to, file their findings as legitimate, while mocking me. Like, what an absurdity.
Yeah.
And this is the judge. This all comes, full circle to what we're talking about tonight. This is the judge who's going to be presiding over the Aaron Dean trial in December.
So let's just say that this stuff, what's happened here, comes to light, right? And
isn't it right now?
Well, yeah. No, but I'm just saying, like,
isn't that why I'm here?
Yeah. But let's say, like, it starts picking up that steamroll, right?
Yeah.
And the case is over. He presided over it, and now you've got actual, now this judge is under investigation for some of this, clearly the stuff that he's done, and I mean, doesn't that make it a point that this case could again be just thrown out because that judge presiding over it that also was in dealing with that aspect, and now it's all just, we got to start over again? I mean,
there's a lot of ways that this, again, if the only way it'll become a shitstorm is if he's found. Actually, sorry, I got to rephrase that because it's gonna be a shitstorm either way.
Right.
What we're talking about is Aaron Dean's option of having a retrial or appealing this case, and all of these things compromise that. That enable that effort, I should say. So for anyone who, and I'm going to just say it, for anyone who thinks that in the interest of justice, Aaron Dean murdered Atatiana Jefferson, and that's what he needs to be sent to prison for. If that's what your idea of justice is, all of these judicial misconduct, things that we're talking about tonight, undermine that, because if, in fact, a jury finds him guilty of murdering Atatiana Jefferson, there's a lot of ways it can be overturned now, because Lee Gabriel, who accused, was not constitutionally qualified. David Evans has his own mess, and he assigned Lee Gabriel. George Gallagher, who presided over the case, presumably knew all of that and has his own questionable history of assigning special prosecutors who cover up for public, malfeasance. And so, that's why this matters, because what Fort Worth really wants in the end is a clean case, either way, that people can believe the verdict.
Right.
And this misconduct undermines that. Either way the verdict goes, this undermines the rulings, because how do we trust the judges that ruled on this case?
So the defense obviously has, like you said, like a path forward after if he's found guilty, right? But is there anything that the prosecution can do at the moment, because the same shit's happening, right? Is there anything they can do, or are they just kind of like sitting on their thumbs kind of waiting until the trial? Like, is there anything they can do?
The prosecution, if they were smart, they would try to make sure that the final verdict sticks, if in case it is a guilty verdict. The fact that they're relying to go through the way it is, they're going to be gambling.
Right, yeah.
So
that's what it sounds like.
And I mean, if it is a guilty verdict, I mean, regardless of how much corruption or issues there are with the judge, I mean, anytime there's a guilty verdict, especially with a weight like this, it's going to be appealed. I mean, that's just what happens,
that's also
right?
true.
But this is just giving that extra weight for that appeal to win.
Right.
We're a ways out. And I'll say, I didn't bring copies, but there are cases where criminal cases, cases have been overturned because the judge wasn't constitutionally qualified. So that's happened before. It's not preto bail bonds. There was a visiting retired judge who hadn't taken his oath of office since he retired, and he made a ruling on a case, and the defendant figured out this guy hadn't filed his oath of office, just like Lee Gabriel had not. It was overturned. So these things have been overturned before based on the stuff we're talking about. It's far from unprecedented, especially when you're talking about something as big as a not capital murder case, but a murder case. Sorry.
I mean, you would want, if I was involved in this case, I would want all my ducks in a row and make sure it's perfect, because you don't want something like this to come back and bite you. I mean, and if you're trying, like you said, undermining the entire case, you would want to be perfect.
So let me ask a stupid question, probably a couple of stupid questions, because I don't know. So when if he's found guilty and they start through that process, and it's overturned for whatever reason, would they go back through trial, or is it just over? Is it done?
Honestly, I don't have the answer to that question.
Okay.
I better not guess on that.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Gotcha.
I would err toward retrial before the other, but I don't know.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, just out of curiosity.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I do. Yeah, I think they would have to retry the. Actually, I can say they would have to retry the case.
Because I think that the worst part about that, right, is that her family has to go through that all again and again and again, and it's already been pushed out years now. It just seems like such a dirty and gross process when you just want it to be over.
Well, you see the same thing with like sexual assault victims and stuff like that, where they have to go and face these trials, right? And then basically sit and have their the person they're accusing and have to relive all that trauma, right? And then they go up for probation or whatever, or parole, and they have to sit on those parole hearings if they want to try to keep the person locked up. And so it's the same concept. I mean, it's just got to be it's heart-wrenching for the family.
Yeah, but you mentioned earlier, like,
I can't imagine it.
You just assume that the process is working the way it should. You know what I mean? Judges are coming in with the utmost honesty and integrity and doing all the right things, crossing their T's and dotting their I's, and you just assume that everything's fine. Then you hear all this, and you realize it's not exactly true, right? And it's just kind of, I don't know. It's hard to hear.
At the end of the day, they're politicians. I mean, realistically, at the end of the day, they're an elected official, and they try, and that's what they're going to go for. They're going to try to, whatever side of the political spectrum they're on, they're going to pander to those people to get re-election and try to get re-election. And sometimes, people make false promises and statements just to get that, and then here we are, right?
Yeah. Well, if the question is, do they deserve the situation? The judiciary is probably most to blame for this, because a lot of the things that they're doing, they do without consulting the district attorney's office. But the prosecutors also see this stuff happen all the time, and they don't call it out. So they've allowed this system to exist. It's one that has protected the DA's office, because George Gallagher is assigning special prosecutors that find their DA and other people having no wrongdoing. So it's a symbiotic. Kind of co-enabling system that has led to this mess right now, and it's a mess because it's a trial that everyone's going to be watching.
Oh yeah.
And whichever way it goes, we're going to be asking if these judges were on the up and up along the way.
So these processes and a lot of things that you're talking through, is that a Fort Worth thing? Is it a Texas thing? Or is it just like the way that judges are like nationwide? Because I, again, have no earthly idea. Like how you pull in these retired judges and things like that. Is that just for us?
If it's a Tarrant County thing, it's a Texas thing, because it's a Texas culture thing. I can't speak for Oklahoma or other states, but I can definitely speak to Texas, because what's happening here is happening elsewhere. Maybe even more so here in Texas, because of the climate of permissiveness that we allow in Tarrant County. So it's probably a little worse than else in Texas, but it's probably bad throughout Texas.
So why is this still being done? Like why isn't it being stopped? And what can people do? Like what can people do to stop this?
What you can do is pay attention to elections and vote in the right judges. Why it's allowed to happen is because there's no system of accountability for judges. There's no one policing the judges right now. And there are some people that are working right now to change that dynamic, but right now they just rule with impunity.
Well, if I vote in the right judge and then that judge pulls in a retired judge, does that even matter?
I mean,
right?
Yeah. I think obviously this is something that didn't happen overnight, right?
Yeah.
And at one point, however long ago it was, maybe we had all the judges were on the up and up. And then it started slowly, that drift, right? And then now we're so far askewed, like it's hard to fathom how we bring that boat back onto the right course.
Mm-hmm.
I think, judges, one thing to understand about judges, they have so much power. They may have started out with the right intentions, but when you're in an environment where when you walk in, people literally stand up. You're in an environment where if anyone questions you, you can point at them and they go to jail right then and there. it's going to eventually kind of skew the way you think, and you're eventually going to think you don't make mistakes.
You carry a little card that gets you out of jail free, essentially.
Yeah.
God complex a little bit.
A little bit of a God complex.
Well, and then you throw, and I'm not saying we can't speak for all judges, right? But you throw in that like temptation of, hey, I have this prime hunting land. I like to hunt. You like to hunt? You like to go play golf? I'm a member, of whatever golf course. Let's go out and play some golf.
What we need to do, we need to hang out at Colonial Country Club, and we're going to just sit kind of uncomfortably close to a table of old white judges, and we're going to just eavesdrop.
Just listen to their conversation.
Just try to get some of that intel, because there's probably some good information happening.
We've been talking about getting one of those like long distance microphones.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Parabolic microphone?
Give us a good reason.
The obnoxious ones.
If we can just hack their hearing aid, get the right logarithm.
Yeah.
I know if Tim hacked it, he'd like be blaring Pantera.
Yeah, I would blare some music in their ear.
That's our punishment for them.
Some psychological warfare.
So I had no idea this was going on. I had no idea this was a thing that was happening here, not just in Tarrant, but maybe all of Texas. So why isn't this a bigger story?
Again, I think people don't question judges, and also there's no system of accountability for judges, so they do get away with it. There's there's the State Commission on Judicial Conduct that maybe slaps a couple of judges on the wrist a year, and they sure as hell don't kick them off the bench.
Yeah. So
they're given wide authority and powers, and that needs to change. They need to have the same. They need to be held to a system that can impeach them or disbar them or take them off their position when they commit a crime. But until there's legislation that allows for that, or until there's some kind of new commission on judicial conduct that can enforce that, that's not going to change.
Maybe like an internal affairs with judges or something.
I want to use that example for a PD.
You got to be careful with like internal affairs. Yeah, they're supposed to do the investigations and stuff like that, but still, how do you find it completely unbiased?
Look what happened to Chief Fitzgerald.
It has to be transparent.
Yeah.
You can't allow, like with the Office of Internal Affairs, you can't allow cops to investigate, although that happens. You have to have an outside group that not only is not beholden to them, but is incentivized to do the right thing. They're incentivized to investigate and find misconduct, like financially incentivized. And until that dynamic changes, they're going to keep getting away with what they're doing.
So with what I've gathered from all this, and it really comes down to paying attention to who we're electing. Don't just blindly just select people. Actually do some research before we go in the voting booth and put some thought behind it. And that's the way we're going to make some changes. And then hopefully with legislation like you're talking about, that there will be some checks and balances that do happen at that upper level, like it should.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to talk about it. So thanks, guys, for putting yourself in harm's way.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what? I'll report back to you tomorrow and let you know.
I hope we're all still alive tomorrow.
If I see
what the hell?
If I see a black SUV sitting outside my house, whatever.
Group chat, still alive tomorrow. 6 p.m. Check in. Who's there?
Have you ever watched the movie Michael Clayton?
No.
It seems kind of like something that would,
Yeah.
But it's true. Like nobody ever really talks about this kind of stuff because, like, what good is it for somebody? And it's a very sad thing to talk about. What good is it to report somebody that's being malfeasant?
And if you do, it doesn't go anywhere. Like it's just discouraging.
And they get punished for it.
Yeah.
And that's like it happened with Chief Fitzgerald. The same thing. He found corruption and reported it, and look at him now. What can you do? We're just, and as a matter of fact, when we're going through this, I'm like, are we going to get murdered? Like,
no, it's not like we're investigating the Clintons. It's okay.
No, but I think that, the things that you're talking about, but also just overall awareness, which hopefully this brings to light a little bit, right? Like, thanks for coming on and like talking through it, because the three of us, and then anyone that's on right now on YouTube, and anyone that's going to listen when the podcast drops. Hopefully that just continues to spread that awareness of like what is happening in our city, county, state, right? And just being aware of it is a big deal. Like not a whole lot we can do about it at the moment, but knowing about it is a big deal.
I do want to ask, does the defense try to, like, are they for Atatiana? Are they delaying the case, trying to delay it more and more, just to like make everyone start to forget? Like, oh, this is still hadn't gone on yet. Like we're still like trying to delay this more and more.
Part of some of it. I mean, like you already mentioned a lot of the reasons why they would
plays
push it
in
back.
their favor for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
It plays in their favor. Yeah.
I mean, her what was it? Her father passed away, already, and you got less of that family impact, and I mean, it's sad, like how you can manipulate the system to try to win a case. Or
there's no excuse for this taking 3 years like this.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Anybody else would have been pretty quick.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just.
George Floyd was killed well after her, and the trial ended well before.
Right.
Yeah, because it was October 2019 when that happened.
Well, yeah, because they wanted to stop the riots. I mean, I'm being for real. Like that's like honestly the only reason why I can think why
for
it would be.
Whatever the reason, they did the right thing.
Yeah, right. But that's the only reason why I could think like they would hurry something like that up is because civil disruption and whatever.
And Chrissy from the chat, this is also a good point, right? The longer it's delayed, the longer he's free, because he did put up like a $200,000 bail or something like that, I think, from what I read. And so like he's still out there, living his life to an extent. And
yeah, I've seen video of him like just smiling and like.
Dude, I wouldn't leave the house, man.
Like nothing.
Wouldn't leave the house.
Yeah,
I mean,
be terrified. Eddie.
Yeah.
Where can we find you, like social media wise, or anything like that you'd like to plug?
Well, I'm on Hinge.
Noise.
Still single. Gonna plug that. We're Brown on Hinge.
No, if you're a lawyer, just move on. Thank you. Yeah, move on.
Lawyers.
Get to stepping.
I'm not over lawyers. I had a bad experience. I'll give him a second chance.
All right.
So just not gonna do personal.
That's on you, man.
Not gonna do personal injury again. I'm gonna step it up.
Okay.
Only dating family law attorneys.
There
you go. There you go.
That's okay. That's respectable.
I've learned my lesson.
It's like you eat a bad Arby's roast beef sandwich. You don't just stop eating at Arby's. Right?
No, and I'm
locations.
I'm the one who's keeping them up in business right now. So. All right, so we can find you the Fort Worth Weekly.
Yeah, the website, fwweekly.com, Instagram, at Fort Worth Weekly. You'll find some fun posts we have on Tim O'Hara right there.
Awesome.
So.
Oh, hey, man, there's a lot to talk about with that guy in Mercy Church. Oh, man.
Oh, man, that's a whole other episode.
That's our next episode.
Oh,
man.
Lord, those guys,
it's a real thing.
I swear to God.
Well, Eddie, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it. This has been different, but it's actually been...
It's heavy. I appreciate you guys being good sports and listening to it. It was kind of slow sometimes.
I found it interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah. All right.
I didn't know what to expect going into it, and I learned a lot. Thanks for answering my dumb questions. I appreciate you.
I had to. It was your show.
Yeah. Good point. All right. Thanks for hanging out with us, everybody. If you don't already do so, please make sure you follow us on all social medias at The Funky Panther. You can find all of that at thefunkypanther.com. Leave us a voicemail. Text us 817-677-0408. Go follow FW Weekly. Again, you can find the paper copy at any restaurant and bar, it seems like,
any
in Fort
good
Worth.
Restaurant or bar.
That's true. That's facts. We were at Lola's on Saturday night, and we pulled one out.
They love us.
I don't know why Angelo's has one.
You did say good. No. But yeah, go get yourself a copy. But yeah, stay good, everybody. I'm Chad.
I'm Javier.
And I'm Tim.
And we are
The Funky Panther.
Bye, y'all.